produce their own meat and eggs, PurelyPoultry.com has both the chickens and supplies you need to raise your own poultry.
Would you like pets who produce eggs you can barter with? Your own source of clean meat?
A swan on your pond to make your home strikingly beautiful?
How about some pheasants and quail roaming in your woods for enjoyment? If so, check out PurelyPoultry.com.
Burger House 41 is open at 1860 West Mason in Green Bay. You're invited to indulge in one of life's simplest pleasures, a great burger. We're grilling up 15 fresh signature burgers and have over 30 craft beers for the perfect pairing. Experience Wisconsin's best flavors, including white cheddar cheese curds, a variety of specialty sandwiches, milkshakes, and gourmet frozen custard. Burger House 41 at 1860 West Mason is open at 11 a.m. daily. Taste Wisconsin. Taste amazing.
6%? 7%? That's a lot of money. I might as well just do it myself. Well, that might be true, if a lot of that money you're paying a real estate broker is going toward outdated methods, unnecessary fancy offices, and overpaying executives for a lifetime of service. But you don't need to go that route. Silver Compass Realty is a full-service real estate brokerage serving all of South Central Wisconsin, and the commission is negotiable. Silver Compass will explain exactly what they're going to do to help you buy or sell a home, how that will help you reach your goals, and stand right beside you every step of the way. They want to be your broker, your expert, even when you're not in the middle of a transaction. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Contact them today at silvercompassrealty.com or call 608-361-8608. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Welcome back to the Free People Show, episode 19. You can watch us on Facebook, listen to us on Facebook. Go to freepeopleshow.com, however, to find show notes, previous episodes, to find out what platforms we're on, all the different podcasting platforms on which you can find us. That's where we want you to go. Also, if you think of it, I believe this is up and working, we have a link on our website, an Amazon link. Now, if you click on that Amazon link and do your shopping through our window into Amazon, you'll see that it's the same as everyone else's. It just looks exactly the same. But the difference is that by using that particular portal that you got from our website, you'll be sending a little bit of money to the show.
And you can go there and buy the Beatnik Spy books.
You can go there and buy the Beatnik Spy
help
books.
me and the show at the same time.
And send it. It doesn't cost you anymore. I've been doing it for years with Tom Woods' same situation, but now it's time for all of you who are listening and watching to go to freepeopleshow.com, use the Amazon portal, and if it's not up now, I'm sure Dustin's going to have it up now that I just pimped it. So,
but most importantly, buy our survival kit and our water purification system.
Our anti-chemtrail fallout umbrella.
Anti-chemtrail water purification system.
Look out for the midgets that live under the bridge.
They're turning the frogs gay.
Special this month on tinfoil hats.
All right, we're completely off the rails. We did discover one thing during the break, for those of you who are listening and weren't watching on Facebook, and that is that Patrick should be allowed to drive after having 3 beers, but Miles should not.
Yeah.
We've figured that out.
Yeah.
Not based on body weight.
I do handle my alcohol better than your average person.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll vouch for that. If
Well,
I vouch for
standard.
you, will you vouch for me?
By the way, I had a really great idea while Miles was talking about that. I thought, you know what we should do is we should have like a drunken certification program where the alcohol level that you can be arrested at varies dependent. You can get you're pre-certified to have a higher level. What you have to do is you have to go to your local police station and conduct a number of tests after having a certain number of drinks, like agility tests and reasoning tests. And if you do well enough, instead of getting arrested for a 0.8, you have to be a 1.12 to be considered.
Because
drunk.
really, it's not about the alcohol. It's just about how coordinated
you are. We all
you
know
are.
people who they have like one glass of wine and they're
Well,
silly.
and there's tons of people out there driving.
They should
on the Beltline
have a
tonight. They
conversation
shouldn't be
after
driving
one glass of
sober.
wine.
I don't care how old they are.
Right.
So they're a danger out
Right.
there driving around.
But those of us who are professional drinkers, we should be given a little bit of slack by the law. I
picked up Miles downtown, and I think it was an Uber driver, right? Totally cut me off, and I honked, and I didn't stick my finger out at him or anything. But there are people that shouldn't be driving. It's not just an age thing. So that kind of segues back into our topic. If somebody is age 18, in most states they can drive. There's some variation to that. I think a couple of states you got to be 19. And some other ones where you can get your permit earlier. I think in some states you can get your permit as early as 14. My dad, back in 19, I don't know, whatever it was, 39 or something, learn to drive because the football coach said, "Here, take the car over and pick up the footballs from the thing," and he was like 13 and he just got in the car and drove it. That's how it was back then. But the question ultimately comes down to what rights does a person have to be an adult? Once they're an adult, as we just talked about and agreed to, you come to a certain age, you should be an adult and responsible for all your own actions. But the government, sadly, takes an interest in protecting. Well, not necessarily sadly. They take an interest in protecting people from one another, violating property rights. That's actually one constitutional justification for government. But, what if they can't pay? What if they're not responsible? What if there's differences in people's abilities? It's not just an age thing. It's what you've demonstrated as being your ability to do that. So there are even people, like Ann Coulter, I think, recently said that people shouldn't be allowed to vote till they're 30. There was an article in the New Yorker that I think she was referring to that said people shouldn't be allowed to vote until they're like 26. Sort of following up on the argument that we made that if all the data suggests, and the only group of all that we're talking about that are actually looking at data is insurance, and they're experts at looking at data, decide that people aren't mature till they're 25 to conduct a car on a well-regulated, well-designed thoroughfare, then why should be people allowed to do anything else until they're 25?
Well, to me, it gets back to the issue of responsibility. Is that if you take a libertarian view that almost everything that we do is not a right, but the government has no right to come in and regulate it.
So there's no right involved at all.
This is a little bit off topic, but you just look at the issue of licensing for hairdressers and nail salons, all that sort of thing. There's a lot of libertarian arguments against government regulation of a lot of different things, that, especially when it comes to licensing, where the government is using that justification. Well, it's for the public health. We have to regulate hairdressers because they put their dirty fingers in people's hair or whatever.
Yeah, it's usually cronyism or
but it is. It's
taxation
totally
like
cronyism
that,
in almost every case. It's corrupted by the special interests in almost every case, which is a great libertarian argument to say, look, the government should only be regulating, if it's going to regulate anything at all, it should only be regulating clear public dangers. Like the example you've made is drunk driving. If you get behind the wheel and you're drunk, you're clearly a threat to others.
Whether you actually hit somebody,
right.
it's clear.
Waving a gun around and
demonstrable.
shooting it in a crowd of people, clearly that's not something that should be allowed to people to have the freedom to do, regardless of whether they're held responsible after the fact. So there are a certain number of things that, in my mind, are clear dangers that the government should be allowed to prohibit or regulate. But there has to be some kind of, and I don't know what it is, there has to be a clear test for when something is a clear danger versus when something is, well, it would be nice if we regulated that. And
so many things the government gets involved in, not based on statistics, but based on anecdote. Political.
Oh, there's always,
like
there's
even
always
the
the
even
news
the Kimmel
stories
thing
where they
was like
find the three people in the entire world that had their car exploded when they activated the cigarette lighter. They're all burned and they're all horrible in their hospital, and they put them on TV and they're, if we can only save one person, it'll be worth it. Well, that's probably how you regulate this at the cost of millions, and cripple businesses, and you save one person. Well, that's a good trade-off. That I actually heard that argument on another topic earlier today.
People use that argument all the time.
If we can only save one person, it's
not
worth
true.
Millions.
It's not true, because they do the exact opposite when it's time to go to war.
Right.
We'll sacrifice lives for as many as we need to keep
we're
our liberty.
protecting our freedom,
but we'll sacrifice our liberty to save
the
one
crap
person.
out of people on the other side of the world.
It's so disjointed and so appeals to emotion and not to logic and not on statistics.
This is a terrible thing to think about, but you think about the case of the man who was choked to death by the police in
New York for the cigarette taxes.
Was it Eric Garner?
Eric Garner, yeah.
Garner.
There's so many different people who have been killed by the police.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah, but he was killed by.
He was literally murdered by the police.
He was murdered by the police.
Murdered by
for
half a dozen
unlicensed
police.
Counterfeit
cigarettes, loose cigarettes.
For selling a loose cigarette, because a cigarette is a controlled substance. That's insane.
But he wasn't accused of selling it to a minor. He was unlicensed. He was just selling them. There wasn't a minor
Supposedly,
involved in it,
we don't even know if he
so
actually
the whole
was
idea of
selling
what it was
cigarettes.
controlled, the people that were involved were entitled, you know, to have cigarettes, just not loose. It's like you try to take a case of beer down to State Street, pull bottles out and sell it to people. I mean, it's more or less the same thing. The problem is that the interests involved, in that case, the tobacco industry or the alcohol industry or anyone
Taverns,
else, or whoever
liquor
else,
stores,
they want
beer
no
distributors.
Yeah, exactly. They're totally lined up with their pocketbooks to make sure that only. It's like dairy too. I mean,
Back to what you were
the
saying
whole
about-
dairy situation.
about
It's all
alcohol.
about unlicensed, even though it's perfectly good, fine stuff to buy and let the buyer have the relationship with the farmer and all that. You can see we touched a sore spot here, but that's the only real interest is to protect big industries that really don't and shouldn't need that sort of protection.
But we're agreed on that for adults. But what about under 18? I mean, can that sort of thinking that we oppose as libertarians, the regulation of people's lives to the nth degree and doing it for their own good, can that be extended? Like you just brought up cigarettes. Is there an argument in favor of not regulating cigarettes as far as age goes? I mean, or if you say, well, you know, or liquor, alcohol, you know, why have a limitation on age as far as liquor and alcohol go?
I agree, and
I mean,
you know what?
the justification is, well, we're protecting children.
But here's the interesting thing. Democrats especially, but people like to point out how things go in other countries, especially when it comes to like healthcare and things like that. But drinking ages in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was in Europe.
Yeah,
It's
the bars are full of children in France.
Well, but it's just
terrible.
part of the culture, so it's normalized, so it's not this huge deal. And part of the reason we have an immense binge drinking problem at the University of Wisconsin is because you have to go do it secretly. You have to hide and do it, and then so people.
In all seriousness, I talk about being a professional drinker, but the truth of the matter is that my parents let me drink at home, you know, under their supervision when I was a teenager, and so by the time I went off into the Navy, you know, I was already a fairly experienced drinker, and you know, yeah, I drank a lot more, but you know, I think I was better prepared to go out into the world because of that.
I mean,
than someone who had it prohibited from their life completely, you know, and suddenly they're set free, you know, and they have to learn everything from scratch on their own.
That's the thing too within Wisconsin. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, that you can drink in Wisconsin. I don't even know. Maybe you can drink at 10 years old, but with your parents in a bar.
There's a lower age limit with your parents.
Anything under 18, you can legally drink with your parents, but from 18 to 21, you cannot go to a bar even with your parents.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I understand that they're no longer. You're now a legal adult.
So my daughter, who's 19, and who also, as a side note, was just elected to the executive committee of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin as an alternate from the second congressional district.
Cannot legally
go to a bar with me.
Cannot drink
and
in
I
a
can
bar.
say, here, Sasha, have a glass of wine.
And the thing is, in Wisconsin, you know, when a parent brings their 16-year-old kid to the bar, it's kind of looked down upon, you know, and.
That's funny because Samuel and I have been in a lot of bars lately.
Well,
actually, this evening at the
up north,
VFW,
it's
right?
A little different.
We have our business meetings after the show at the VFW, which is has a bar in it, and my son, who's not old enough to chauffeur us home. Well, he is old enough to chauffeur us home, I think.
Has he got his license yet?
No, but he having his permit. As long, he could.
Well,
but here's a question for you. Parents, we just discussed, parents can allow their children to drink when they're with them, even except for the 18 to 21-year-old window in public. Should parents be allowed to let their children have cigarettes? Is that legal?
I think that should be allowed. It shouldn't be any different than alcohol.
Can parents
I would
give their children,
but...
and I don't know if this would ever happen, but should parents legally be allowed to give their children consent to have sexual relations before the age of majority?
Well, see, you know, you get these situations where it's a modern thing, and as a dad, I can't imagine this, that people let their kids stay over. You know, like they know their daughter and her boyfriend are having sex, so they're like, well, we'd rather they come over and go up in the bedroom and do it while we're home. So instead of doing it in the backseat of a car or whatever.
I'm not touching
as a
this
dad,
subject
I have
with a 20-foot.
enormous problems with that, but
yeah,
you know,
me too.
It's out there. I mean, there's a lot of parents that buy into that idea. So in a sense, they're kind of doing that. Now, the age of consent, we can jump on this in the next segment. To me, it's a violation of the NAP. Because when you've got someone who's 42 having sex with a 14-year-old,
exactly.
to me, That's a form of
problem.
coercion and aggression.
So we'll get to that after the break. You're listening to the Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com and watching us on Facebook. This is a hot topic we're talking about tonight, age.